They called her the problem before they ever learned her name. When she walked across the tarmac that morning, boots clicking against concrete still wet from the night storm, 24 heads turned, some out of curiosity, others out of the habit that comes with gossip. Lieutenant Commander Elena Roth had transferred to Base Helix barely 48 hours earlier, and already her file had traveled faster than her luggage. The rumor was neat and simple: she broke a mission and blamed the men. No one mentioned that the mission had already been broken before she arrived. The sky above Helix sat heavy and colorless, the kind of gray that blurs edges and hides expression. She liked it that way. Gray gave her time to think. There was an inspection scheduled for 0600 and a safety briefing at 0700, but the real challenge was the unspoken one, the way every conversation paused half a second too long when she entered a room, the quiet inventory of her presence. Captain Marin met her halfway to the hangar. "Lieutenant Commander Roth," he said, voice flat as his clipboard. "We run tight here. No distractions, no noise." "Understood, sir." "Good. I've heard you make both." He walked past before she could answer. Inside, engines hummed on idle, washing everything in low vibration. Crew chiefs called out numbers, air smelled like jet fuel and powdered metal. Elena set her duffel down near a tool cart and slipped gloves on. Work erased thought, that was the secret most officers forgot. She was checking the calibrations on the hydraulic arms when she heard it, a mutter sharp enough to slice through the noise. "Guess Command's idea of punishment is diversity." Another voice answered, lower. "Heard she froze under fire. Cost 2 pilots extraction time." Elena didn't turn. She'd learned early that attention is the currency bullies feed on. Let them spend it in the dark. An hour later, briefing room. Rows of folding chairs, walls plastered with safety diagrams no one read. The projector flickered pale light over half-awake faces. Marin stood up front, reading mission specs off his pad. Elena sat second row, pen still, eyes tracking data without expression. "Any questions?" Marin asked. Silence. Then a cough. Then a voice from the back, "Yeah, sir. If leadership fails mid-rotation, who's accountable? The team or the one who panics first?" A ripple of restrained laughter. Elena recognized the tone before she saw the speaker, Sergeant Hale, tall, confident, reputation like rust, slow-spreading, hard to clean. Marin's glance skimmed her, then him. "Accountability follows command," he said quickly. Next slide. After the meeting, Hale waited at the door, grin crooked. "No hard feelings, ma'am. Just keeping it lively." "Of course," she said. Her voice never changed temperature. "Lively's good. Keeps the oxygen circulating." He blinked, uncertain if she was agreeing or dissecting him. She kept walking. That evening, barracks mess. The hum of conversation shifted when she entered. She carried her tray, rice, chicken, black coffee, and sat at the far end of the table. Across the room, Hale told the story louder now, feeding it to newcomers. She called an abort on a live evac, and 3 men had to double time through crossfire to cover it. Whole op nearly collapsed. Someone asked, "She panic?" He shrugged. "Depends what you call it when someone yells, 'Retreat,' into an open comm." Elena cut her chicken, chewed once, twice, swallowed. The metal fork against porcelain sounded louder than it should have. Later, in her quarters, she opened the small locker beside her bunk. Inside sat a sealed flash drive, marked up Hollow Wave, declassified pending review. She ran a thumb over the label. Hollow Wave, the mission they said she ruined. She plugged it into the base terminal. The file opened in silence. Bodycam footage, Desert Ridge, incoming fire, dust thick enough to hide a heartbeat. Over radio, pilot 2 down. Extraction point compromised. Then her own voice, steady, clear, retreat south corridor. I repeat, retreat south. I'm moving north flank to cover. Not panic. Coordination. But they'd clipped the last line in every retelling. She closed the file. Truth without witnesses is just data. The next morning, 0430, she stood on the range while the others were still half asleep. Wind pushed sand across the concrete. She loaded, aimed, fired, rhythm precise, mechanical, almost prayerful. The recoil steadied her breathing. A voice behind her, trying to prove something, "Ma'am?" She ejected the magazine, turned. Hail again, smirk intact. "Trying," she said, "to improve something. Wordplay won't clean a record. Neither will gossip." He laughed, stepped closer. "Relax. We're all on the same side." Then faced the same direction. He shook his head and walked off, muttering. She watched him go, the pattern of his steps, the way confidence always hides imbalance. By 0900, she was in the control tower for test drills. New recruits stumbled through formation runs below. Marin briefed instructors on communication delays. Elena scanned the monitors. One feed glitched, camera 5, East Training Bay, static flashing like lightning. She adjusted frequency, picture cleared, Hale standing behind a junior tech, pointing at something on her console. The girl laughed nervously. Hale's hand lingered on her shoulder too long. Elena leaned toward the mic, control to East Bay. "Sergeant Hale, report to tower." Static. He looked up at the camera, smirked, turned it off. By evening, rumor shifted again. This time she wasn't the coward, she was the accuser. The woman who saw harassment everywhere. The word problem returned, louder, heavier, with new decoration, unstable, insubordinate, fragile. When she walked through the corridors, conversation folded itself away like paper cranes. Marin called her in. "Lieutenant Commander, these allegations you keep bringing. I haven't brought any." "Then maybe stop creating them. This base runs on cohesion. You understand what that means?" "Yes, sir." "It means silence." He frowned. "It means discipline. Sometimes they look the same." That night, she received an encrypted message through the internal network, no sender ID, just text, "Check locker 12B before lights out." She waited until the halls emptied. Locker 12B sat near the maintenance wing, paint peeling, door slightly bent. Inside, a small flash card and a note. "You're not wrong. Watch this before they delete it." Back in her room, she inserted the card. Grainy video appeared, Training Bay Camera 5, timestamp the morning before. Hale behind the tech, same gesture, same smirk. But this time, audio active. His words clear, "You touch that control again, I'll teach you what real obedience looks like." The tech's voice, quiet, scared, "Yes, Sergeant." Then the camera cut off. Elena sat still, screen light washing her face. Proof. Not just of his behavior, but of a culture that protected it. She could forward it up the chain, but she'd seen that trick before. Files get misplaced. Evidence gets lost. Victims get rotated to new units. Instead, she copied the footage to 3 separate drives, labeled none of them, hid them in plain sight, one in her medkit, one inside the coffee tin, one mailed to her own name at headquarters with no return address. Then she waited. 2 days later, inspection. Hale led his team through the trench course, laughing, loud as always. Marin watched from the platform. Elena stood near the supply crates, clipboard in hand, eyes following every movement. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the air still carried the smell of metal and ozone. The training bay gleamed under a film of mist that made every surface shine like glass. By 0600, the entire base had gathered, pilots, techs, mechanics, and Marines leaning against railings pretending not to be curious. Commander Marin stood at the front with a tablet, voice carrying just enough authority to sound official. "This is a joint discipline exercise," he said. "Objective, coordination, respect, response time. 2 participants will demonstrate proper conduct under duress." Everyone already knew who the 2 participants were. Elena waited near the starting line, gloves pulled tight, boots squared on the wet concrete. Across from her, Sergeant Hale rolled his shoulders, that familiar grin still carved across his face. "Ready to make it look good, ma'am?" he called. She didn't answer. Her silence landed heavier than words. Marin raised his hand. "On my mark, go." Hale moved first, eager, almost theatrical. He lunged toward the low-bar obstacle, vaulted, turned back, and shouted to the crowd, "Speed, precision, teamwork." The laughter that followed echoed off the steel rafters. Elena followed the course exactly as instructed, no shortcuts, no dramatics, each motion efficient, deliberate. Her boots sank into mud that hadn't dried from the previous night's rain. She climbed, dropped, crawled, turned. The cameras caught every movement, base documentation protocol in effect. Halfway through, Hale slowed down just enough to position himself beside her. "Careful," he whispered, "ground slick." His voice carried mock sweetness. She didn't break rhythm. Then, exactly as before, he moved behind her. The shove came hard, fast, rehearsed, the same move that had humiliated her once. But this time, she stepped left, pivoted, caught his forearm, and redirected his momentum straight into the same trench he'd taunted her beside. He hit the water with a sound that silenced the entire bay. She didn't speak. She didn't smirk. She just turned to Marin. "Demonstration complete, sir." For a moment, no one breathed. Then Marin nodded stiffly. "Logged. End exercise." The crowd broke like a tide, half laughter, half stunned quiet. Phones lifted. The moment replayed through 30 different lenses. By lunch, the video had spread beyond Helix. Command offices, field stations, even external contractors were sharing it. The caption under most versions was simple: "Correction executed." In the commander's office, Marin scrolled through comments, expression unreadable. "You humiliated a senior NCO," he said when she entered. "I corrected behavior," she replied. "You did it on camera." "I didn't bring the cameras." He stared at her, jaw tight. "You've made enemies here." She folded her hands behind her back. "Only the kind that needed one." By evening, the footage reached Division Command. An internal memo circulated: "Pending review of conduct at Base Helix, evidence attached." She knew what came next: investigation, interviews, paperwork meant to exhaust patience. She'd seen it before. But something shifted this time. The narrative didn't stick. The more they called her insubordinate, the more the video said otherwise. She wasn't angry, she was calm. She wasn't violent, she was precise. The next day, she was summoned again, this time not by Marin, but by Colonel Armitage, regional oversight. His office smelled of dust and recycled air. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "You understand why you're here," he began. "To discuss conduct. To discuss reputation." He leaned back. "You've developed quite one." She waited. "I reviewed the footage," he said. "Both incidents. Your restraint under provocation is unusual. It's regulation, sir. Regulation doesn't usually look like control. It looks like fear. Yours looked planned. Correction requires timing." He studied her for a long moment, then tapped his pen once. "Tell me what you want, Lieutenant Commander." "Change," she said simply. "Training that enforces respect, not silence. That's a policy issue." Then make it policy. He almost smiled. You realize most people in your position would be requesting reassignment. I don't leave rot behind, sir. I clean it. He laughed once, not mockingly, but in surprise. You think you can fix the system from the inside? She stood. I don't need to fix the system. I just need to make it accountable. When she left, he was still watching her, as if seeing the blueprint of a solution he hadn't thought possible. Within weeks, an official directive circulated across all regional training divisions: mandatory respect and conduct review, protocol to be implemented under supervision of Lieutenant Commander Elena Roth. The same officers who'd called her unstable were now attending her seminars. Hale had been transferred to a lower post, pending formal review. Rumor said he rarely spoke above a whisper now. In the first session she led, the room was silent, rows of uniforms waiting for permission to exhale. She began without greeting, just her voice, steady, low, even. Discipline isn't the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. What we tolerate defines our standards. What we ignore defines our culture. Every time we call someone the problem, we might be protecting the real one. No one moved. This isn't about punishment. It's about precision. Correction is how we evolve. Today, we begin. After the session, a young cadet lingered by the door, helmet tucked under his arm. "Ma'am," he said, voice hesitant, "my sister dropped out of training last year. Said the environment broke her down. If she'd had someone like you." Elena stopped him gently. "Tell her she still can. It's not the uniform that gives you authority, it's your silence when it matters, and your voice when it counts." He nodded, eyes wet. "Thank you, ma'am." Months passed. Base Helix changed. Not perfectly, but noticeably. The jokes quieted, the cameras turned from mockery to documentation. A new motto painted on the hangar wall read, "Strength without arrogance." No one signed it, but everyone knew who had chosen the words. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the perimeter fence, Marin approached her outside the control tower. He looked older somehow, or maybe just honest. "You did what I couldn't," he admitted. "I did what anyone could," she replied. "Not anyone would." She shrugged lightly. "Then maybe that's the difference." He looked down, then back at her. "They're calling it the Roth Protocol. I didn't write it for a name. Doesn't matter. It's saving careers, maybe more." She watched the horizon turn gold over the steel runway. "It's not saving careers," she said quietly. "It's saving lives before they break." Later that night, in her quarters, she opened her terminal. Messages filled the screen, some from officers she'd never met, others from civilians who'd read about the reform spreading beyond the base. One subject line stood out, from Sergeant Hale. She hesitated, then opened it. No excuses. No sarcasm. Just a single line, "You were never the problem. Thank you for proving it." She closed the message, leaned back, and let the silence settle around her like armor. Outside, a transport lifted off, engines glowing against the dark. The sound vibrated through the walls, steady, rhythmic, alive. In the months that followed, her program expanded across installations. Civilians adopted it, corporations studied it, academies borrowed the framework. The principle was simple: control, respect, accountability. But the effect was seismic. Reporters asked for